Your friends don't want you to succeed. They say they do. But watch what happens when you start outgrowing the conversations they're comfortable having. Watch how they react when you stop showing up to their complaints and gossip sessions. Watch how quickly they label your growth as arrogance and your standards as judgment. The people closest to you have the biggest investment in keeping you exactly where you are because your transformation threatens their excuses. They need you to stay small so they can feel normal about their own mediocrity. This is why the most dangerous advice comes from people who love you but have never lived the life you're trying to create. Every caterpillar knows something that most humans have forgotten. When it's time to become a butterfly, it doesn't announce it to the world. It doesn't post about its transformation on social media. It doesn't invite friends to watch the process. Instead, it wraps itself in darkness, disappears from sight, and undergoes the most radical change of its existence where nobody can see. A caterpillar understands a principle that will change your life forever. The greatest transformations happen in private. While everyone else is busy making noise about their goals and dreams, the wise ones slip away into silence and do the work that matters. Maria Rodriguez learned this lesson the hard way. 3 years ago, she was running a small bakery in downtown Phoenix, struggling to make ends meet. Every morning, she would post pictures of her pastries on social media, hoping for customers. Every evening, she would count the few dollars in her register and wonder why her business wasn't growing. She was visible, she was active, she was doing everything the business gurus told her to do, but she was failing. One Tuesday morning, Maria made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She closed her social media accounts. She stopped networking events. She put a simple sign on her bakery door that read, "Temporarily closed for improvements," and disappeared. Her friends called her crazy. Her family worried she was giving up. Her competitors whispered that she had failed, but Maria wasn't failing. She was transforming. For 6 months, she studied the science of baking like her life depended on it. She practiced new techniques until her hands moved without thinking. She redesigned her entire business model, learned about customer psychology, and developed recipes that no one in her city had ever tasted. She worked 16-hour days in complete silence, with no audience to applaud her efforts and no critics to discourage her dreams. When Maria reopened her doors, something extraordinary happened. Lines of customers wrapped around the block. Food bloggers drove from neighboring cities to taste her creations. Within 3 months, she had to hire 12 employees. Within a year, she had opened 3 more locations. The woman who had disappeared in shame returned as a force of nature. What Maria discovered is what every successful person knows but rarely talks about. Visibility is not progress. Being seen is not the same as being successful. The world has confused activity with achievement and noise with results. We live in a generation that measures worth by followers, likes, and comments, forgetting that the most powerful work happens where no camera can capture. Think about this for a moment. When you plant a seed in the ground, what happens first? Does it immediately shoot up toward the sun? No. It goes down. It develops roots in the darkness where no one can see. It gathers strength from the soil, builds a foundation that will support everything that comes after. The part of the plant that determines its ultimate height and strength is the part that nobody ever sees. Your life operates by the same principle. The person you become is not determined by what you do in public. It's determined by what you do in private. The habits you build when no one is watching, the standards you maintain when there's no audience to impress, the work you do when there's no immediate reward. But here's what happens to most people. They start a transformation journey, and within 2 weeks, they're posting about it online. They're telling everyone about their new diet, their new workout routine, their new business idea. They're seeking applause for intentions instead of results. And what happens? The applause becomes a substitute for the achievement. The validation becomes more important than the transformation. This is why most people never change. They're too busy performing change instead of actually changing. They're too busy documenting the journey instead of taking the journey. They're too busy being seen trying instead of actually succeeding. The wise person understands that there's a season for everything. There's a season for planting and a season for harvesting. There's a season for building and a season for celebrating. There's a season for learning and a season for teaching. And there's a season for disappearing and a season for appearing. Most people skip the disappearing season. They want to go straight from intention to celebration, from dream to recognition, from idea to applause. But nature doesn't work that way. Success doesn't work that way. When you disappear strategically, you remove yourself from the distractions that keep you ordinary. You stop caring about what people think and start caring about what you become. You stop performing for others and start performing for yourself. You stop seeking external validation and start building internal strength. The caterpillar that stays visible never becomes a butterfly. It remains a caterpillar forever, crawling along the ground, wondering why it can't fly. But the caterpillar that's willing to disappear, to enter the darkness, to undergo the uncomfortable process of transformation, emerges as something completely different, something that can soar. Your disappearance is not about running away from your problems. It's about running toward your potential. It's not about hiding from the world. It's about preparing to serve the world at a higher level. It's not about giving up. It's about getting ready to give everything you've got. The question is not whether you need to disappear. The question is whether you're brave enough to disappear. Are you willing to let go of the applause to get the results? Are you willing to sacrifice the temporary validation for the permanent transformation? Are you willing to be invisible for a season so you can be unforgettable for a lifetime? Here's something that will blow your mind about how growth really works. When you go to the gym and lift weights, your muscles don't actually grow while you're exercising. They grow while you're sleeping. They grow while you're resting. They grow during the hours when you're not even thinking about fitness. The workout creates the demand. But the growth happens in the quiet moments when your body repairs and rebuilds itself stronger than before. This is the science of invisible growth, and it governs everything in your life. Your mind doesn't grow while you're showing off what you know. It grows while you're alone with a book, wrestling with concepts that challenge your current understanding. Your character doesn't develop while you're getting praised for being good. It develops in the moments when nobody's watching and you choose to do the right thing anyway. Most people have this backwards. They think growth happens during the performance. But performance is just the demonstration of growth that already happened. The athlete doesn't get stronger during the game. The game reveals the strength they built during thousands of hours of practice that nobody saw. The speaker doesn't become eloquent on stage. The stage reveals the eloquence they developed through years of private preparation. Let me tell you about the Chinese bamboo tree. For the first 4 years after you plant it, nothing happens, nothing visible anyway. You water it, you fertilize it, you care for it. But above ground, you see absolutely nothing, no growth, no progress, no sign that your efforts are working. Most people would give up. Most people would conclude that the seed was defective or that they were doing something wrong. But in the 5th year, something miraculous happens. The bamboo tree grows 90 feet in 90 days. 90 feet in 3 months. That's a foot a day. Now, the question is, did the tree grow 90 feet in 90 days? Or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years? The answer changes everything about how you view your own development. A tree grew 90 feet in 5 years. The first 4 years were spent developing a root system so massive, so deep, so strong that it could support 90 feet of growth. The invisible work made the visible miracle possible. James Patterson understood this principle better than most. 5 years ago, he was a decent basketball player at a small college in Tennessee. He averaged 12 points per game. Got some playing time, but nothing special. He wasn't getting recruited by major programs, wasn't getting noticed by scouts. He was just another player in a world full of players at the end of his sophomore year. James made a decision that shocked his teammates and coaches. He announced that he was taking a year off from competitive basketball. Not to quit, not to transfer, but to disappear. He moved back home, got a job at a local gym, and spent every single day working on his fundamentals. Shooting form, footwork, ball handling, conditioning, the basics that nobody wanted to practice because they weren't exciting. His former teammates thought he was crazy. His friends posted about their games on social media while James posted nothing. They celebrated their small victories while James celebrated small improvements that only he could see. They were performing while he was preparing. When James returned to basketball the following year, he was unrecognizable. His shooting percentage had improved by 40%. His ball handling was so smooth it looked effortless. His court vision had expanded to see plays before they developed. He wasn't just better, he was different. That season, he averaged 28 points per game and led his team to the conference championship. Major universities started calling, professional scouts started showing up to his games. But here's what they didn't understand. James didn't suddenly become great. He had been becoming great in private for an entire year. The greatness was already there when he stepped back on the court. The games just revealed what the invisible work had already created. This is why your disappearance scares people. Not because they think you're failing, but because they're afraid you're succeeding. They're afraid that while they're busy performing their current level, you're busy developing your next level. They're afraid that while they're celebrating where they are, you're preparing to go where they've never been. Society fears your disappearance because it exposes their own lack of commitment to growth. When you stop showing up to the parties, stop participating in the gossip, stop engaging in the activities that keep everyone else busy, you force them to confront uncomfortable truth. They're choosing entertainment over development, comfort over growth, applause over achievement. The compound effect of consistent invisible work is the most powerful force in human development. Every day you spend in private preparation is an investment that pays dividends for years. Every hour you spend developing yourself when nobody's watching is an hour that will serve you when everybody's watching. Your root system is being built right now in this season of your life. The depth of your roots will determine the height of your growth. The strength of your foundation will determine the size of your success. The quality of your invisible work will determine the impact of your visible results. So while others are busy being seen, you be busy becoming. While others are busy performing, you be busy preparing. While others are busy celebrating where they are, you be busy building where you're going. Now, let me be clear about something. There's a difference between running away and strategic retreat. Running away is what you do when you're overwhelmed, defeated, or scared. Strategic retreat is what you do when you're preparing to advance. Running away is about escaping your problems. Strategic retreat is about positioning yourself to solve them at a higher level when a general pulls his troops back from the battlefield. He's not surrendering. He's regrouping. He's analyzing what went wrong, developing new strategies, training his soldiers, and preparing for a victorious return. The retreat is temporary, but the victory it enables is permanent. Your disappearance must be just as intentional. You can't just vanish and hope something good happens. You must design your disappearance with the same precision that an architect designs a building. Every element must serve a purpose. Every day must move you closer to your objective. Linda Washington learned this lesson when she was teaching 5th grade in Detroit for 8 years. She had been a good teacher, not great, not terrible, just good. Her students performed adequately, her evaluations were satisfactory, and her career was progressing at an average pace. But Linda knew she was capable of more. She knew she had the potential to be extraordinary, but she couldn't access it while she was busy being ordinary. During the summer break before her 9th year, Linda made a decision that would transform her entire career. Instead of taking the vacation she had planned, instead of attending the same professional development conferences as her colleagues, she designed what she called her teaching laboratory. She rented a small room in a community center and created a mock classroom where she could experiment with new teaching methods without any students to disappoint or administrators to judge for 3 months. Linda disappeared from her social circle. She stopped attending teacher gatherings, declined invitations to parties, and even avoided the coffee shop where educators from her school district typically met. Instead, she spent every day in her laboratory, testing new approaches to mathematics instruction, developing creative ways to engage reluctant learners, and practicing presentations until her delivery was flawless. She studied brain science to understand how children actually learn. She analyzed data from the most successful schools in the country. She developed her own curriculum that combined traditional methods with innovative techniques. She recorded herself teaching imaginary students and analyzed every gesture, every word, every pause to maximize impact. When Linda returned to school in September, she was no longer the same teacher. Her classroom became a place where struggling students suddenly excelled, where shy children found their voices, where learning became an adventure instead of a chore. Her test scores doubled. Her students started winning academic competitions. Other teachers began asking for her advice. But here's what made Linda's disappearance successful. She didn't just hide away and hope for the best. She created systems that would work when nobody was watching. She developed habits that would serve her when she returned to the spotlight. She built skills that would compound over time. Your personal development laboratory is not a place to escape from the world. It's a place to prepare to serve the world better. It's not about isolation for its own sake. It's about creating the conditions where transformation can happen without interference. This means you must be selective about who you tell about your plans. Most people will try to talk you out of disappearing because your commitment to growth makes them uncomfortable about their own lack of commitment. They'll call it extreme, unnecessary, or antisocial. They'll try to convince you that you're fine the way you are. But you're not trying to be fine, you're trying to be exceptional. And exceptional requires different choices than fine. Exceptional requires that you sometimes say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. Exceptional requires that you sometimes disappoint people who want you to stay the same so you can become the person you're meant to be. The art of selective isolation is knowing when to engage and when to withdraw, when to be visible and when to be invisible, when to perform and when to prepare. It's about building bridges to your future while temporarily stepping away from your present. When you stop performing for others, something profound happens inside you. The person you've been pretending to be begins to die, and the person you were meant to be begins to emerge. This death is not comfortable, it's not easy, but it's absolutely necessary. Most people never experience this death because they're too busy keeping their old identity alive through constant external validation. They need the applause, the likes, the comments, the recognition to feel like they exist. But when you disappear, when you remove yourself from the audience, you discover something remarkable. You don't need their approval to become who you're meant to be. The transformation process begins the moment you stop asking, what will people think, and start asking, what will this make me become? It begins when you stop measuring your worth by other people's opinions and start measuring it by your own growth. It begins when you stop living for the weekend and start living for the breakthrough. But here's what nobody tells you about transformation. It's lonely. Not because you're alone, but because you're becoming someone that the old you doesn't recognize. You're developing standards that your former self couldn't meet. You're thinking thoughts that your previous mindset couldn't comprehend. You're solving problems that your old skill set couldn't handle. This is why most people quit halfway through. They get scared of who they're becoming. They miss the comfort of their old limitations. They prefer the familiar struggle to the unfamiliar strength. They would rather be ordinary with company than extraordinary alone. The discipline of daily improvement in darkness is what separates those who transform from those who merely dream about transformation. Every morning, you must choose to do the work that matters, even when nobody will celebrate it. Every evening, you must choose to prepare for tomorrow, even when nobody will notice. Every moment, you must choose to become better, even when nobody will applaud. This discipline is not about perfection. It's about progression. It's not about never failing. It's about never stopping. It's not about being the best immediately. It's about being better than you were yesterday, consistently, relentlessly, privately. Your biggest breakthroughs happen in private because that's where you're most honest with yourself. In public. You perform. In private, you confront. In public, you present your best self. In private, you work on your real self. In public, you celebrate your victories. In private, you learn from your defeats. The breakthrough comes when you realize that you don't need external motivation to do what's necessary. You don't need someone to push you, encourage you, or hold you accountable. You've developed internal systems that keep you moving forward regardless of how you feel, regardless of what's happening around you, regardless of who's watching or not watching. This is when you know the transformation is real, when you can maintain your standards without an audience, when you can work on your goals without immediate rewards, when you can stay committed to your vision without constant encouragement, when you can be excellent without recognition. The person you become in private is the person you'll be in public. The habits you develop in secret are the habits that will serve you in the spotlight. The character you build in darkness is the character that will shine in the light. But transformation is not just about becoming better. It's about becoming different. It's about accessing parts of yourself that you didn't know existed. It's about developing capabilities that you didn't know you possessed. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that was always there, but never had the space to emerge when you emerge from your season of disappearance. You won't just be an improved version of who you were. You'll be a completely different person who happens to have the same name. There comes a moment in every transformation when preparation meets opportunity, when the invisible work becomes visible results, when the person you've been becoming finally steps into the light. This moment is not an accident. It's not luck. It's the inevitable result of consistent, intentional, private development meeting the right circumstances when you re-enter the world after your season of disappearance. You'll discover something fascinating about human nature. The same people who criticize you for leaving will be amazed by your return. The same people who said you were wasting your time will want to know your secret. The same people who doubted your decision will suddenly want to follow your example. But here's what will shock you the most. Their reactions will reveal more about them than about you. Your success will make some people uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their own lack of commitment to growth. Your transformation will intimidate those who stayed the same because it shows them what was possible if they had been willing to do the work. Let me tell you about David Chen, a software engineer who worked at a tech company in Seattle for 5 years. David was stuck in the same position, writing the same code, attending the same meetings, collecting the same paycheck. He was competent but not exceptional, skilled but not irreplaceable. His colleagues liked him, his boss respected him, but nobody saw him as leadership material. David had bigger dreams. He wanted to start his own company, to build something that would change people's lives, to be more than just another programmer in a cubicle. But every time he tried to work on his ideas after hours, he got distracted by social obligations, family expectations, and the general noise of daily life. His dreams remained dreams. On Friday evening, David made a decision that would change everything. He told his boss he was taking a 6-month leave of absence to handle a family situation. It wasn't entirely a lie. He was handling the situation of a family member who had been neglecting his potential for too long, himself. David didn't travel the world or take a vacation. Instead, he created what he called his innovation bunker in the basement of his apartment. He eliminated every distraction, every social commitment, every activity that wasn't directly related to building his software company. He stopped going to parties, stopped meeting friends for drinks, stopped even dating. His phone went silent. His social media accounts went dormant for 6 months. David lived like a monk with a mission. He woke up at 5 a.m. every day and worked until 10 p.m. He studied successful entrepreneurs, learned new programming languages, developed 3 different software applications, and built a complete business plan. He practiced his sales pitch until he could deliver it flawlessly. He networked with potential investors through email and phone calls, building relationships without revealing his current situation. But most importantly, David developed something that couldn't be coded or programmed: unshakable confidence. He knew that if he could maintain this level of discipline and focus for 6 months, he could maintain it for 6 years. He knew that if he could build something significant in isolation, he could build something extraordinary with the right team and resources. When David returned to work, he wasn't the same person who'd left. His posture was different. His voice was different. His presence was different during his first week back. He scheduled a meeting with his boss and 3 senior executives. He presented his software applications, demonstrated their capabilities, and made them an offer they couldn't refuse. Give him a team and resources to develop these applications for the company, or he would leave and develop them for a competitor. The executives were stunned. This was not the David they remembered. This was not the quiet, compliant programmer who had left 6 months ago. This was a leader, a visionary, someone who had clearly been preparing for this moment. Within 2 weeks, David was promoted to head of innovation with a team of 12 developers and a budget of $2 million. But David's story doesn't end there. The applications he developed during his disappearance generated over $50 million in revenue for the company in the first year. He was promoted to vice president, then to senior vice president. 3 years later, he left to start his own company, which was acquired by a major tech corporation for $400 million. When people ask David about his success, he always tells them the same thing. I became successful the day I decided to disappear. Everything else was just the result of that decision. Your return will shock people because they'll see the compound effect of months of invisible work manifested in a few moments of visible results. They'll witness the person you become, not the process you went through. They'll see the butterfly, not the cocoon. But here's your responsibility once you return. Don't let their amazement go to your head. Don't let their praise become a substitute for continued growth. Don't let their recognition make you forget the discipline that created the results. Success is not a destination you arrive at. It's a standard you maintain. The person you became during your disappearance is not the person you were before you left. That person is gone forever. You cannot go back to your old habits, your old mindset, your old limitations. You must live from your new identity, not your old reputation when you shock them all with your return. Remember that the real victory is not in their amazement. The real victory is in the person you've become. The real victory is in the proof that transformation is possible, that dreams can become reality, that 6 months of intentional disappearance can create a lifetime of intentional impact. Your disappearance was not about them, but your return will change everything for them, because they'll finally see what's possible when someone refuses to settle for ordinary.